What's up everyone, it's JT from Drumunism here with another tutorial. Today we're going to talk about how to EQ your drums. I'm going to be doing this on the Reaper DAW, but this will work on any DAW. I'll be using their parametric EQ plugin, but this will work on any parametric EQ. And I'm using this technique on drums today, but the technique can be used on any instrument. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with the bottom microphone on the floor tom, what I call floor low. We're going to find that on the sound check. We're going to solo that. And today I'll be making sure to leave my microphone also on whenever we solo. And we're going to put it in mono, change it from stereo to mono. Always mix in mono, at least for the first 95% of it. Here's how the floor tom sounds from the bottom microphone. And we're going to open up the effects, add the Reaper EQ. And what we want to do here, our goal is to accentuate what sounds good about the tone and to cut out what sounds bad about the tone. And around here we don't make any drastic changes, we just make several subtle changes. There are lots of small changes, no big changes to the tone. We'll only be adding 3 to 6 decibels or cutting out 3 to 6 decibels. If you do electronic music, you may make bigger changes, but I record acoustic instruments and try to keep it as natural sounding as possible. But the changes I make will be small, but since there's 12 microphones, lots of small changes will eventually add up. So the first frequency we're going to look for, try to accentuate, is the sub bass. We're going to try to find the sub bass frequency in the floor tom. And so you do this by dialing the bandwidth way down, so you just get a small slice. As you can see, when the bandwidth slides back and forth, it covers more or less frequencies. We want to cover less right now, since we're trying to pinpoint exactly what we're looking for or listening for. And as you can see, this only slides up to 12 decibels, but that's actually not very easy to hear, so we're going to type in 24. So, and now we're going to listen for a hum. The hum of the sub bass of the floor tom should be under 100. You can hear it getting louder as I go lower. Ooh. Ooh. So you hear that resonance of whoa, whoa. So there's the sub bass resonating around 57 hertz. We don't want to add 24 decibels to that. We're just going to keep it subtle around 3.6. And we're going to widen the bandwidth a little bit, about 0.62. So now that we've found the sub bass, we want to find the bass. Mathematically, it should be about double the frequency of the sub bass, but we will use our ears to verify. We're going to dial the bandwidth way down just to get a small slice. We're going to pump the gain way up so we can audibly hear the bass. And again, it should be a little bit above 100. Ooh. In this case, it's ringing around 124. We're going to drop that down to about 3.6. Pump the bandwidth up. All right. So now we've accentuated the sub bass and the bass frequencies. So now the next frequency on a drum that you're going to look for is the dreaded beach ball sound. It's present in nearly every drum, and it is annoying when it adds up on 12 microphones or even one microphone. I'm going to try to show you what I'm looking for here, show you what I'm talking about. It's usually around 400. Yeah, you hear that? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like a ping pong ball down a hallway. Like a flat beach ball. We want to cut that sound out of this drum, and virtually every drum you're going to come across that. We want to cut that out. Already lots of improvement. But we're not going to stop there. After we cut out the beach ball sound, the next thing we want to look for is the attack. Probably the shell of your drum, possibly the drum stick, perhaps the drum head. Wherever the attack is, whatever's creating the attack on your particular drum kit. We're going to find that above the 400, usually around 7, 8, 900. All right. There's some ringing around 790 here. So that's good. That's going to help the floor tom cut through the mix, help you hear the attack. Accentuate that a little bit. We'll have a slightly smaller bandwidth. As you move up in frequency, you'll tend to want a smaller bandwidth to kind of get a smaller slice. It's cool to have a fat bandwidth in the bass frequencies because it's all right to pump up generally all of your bass when you're EQing a drum, but you'll get a little more surgical as you go up in frequency. And you'll see why here as we add another band. We're going to be looking for another frequency to accentuate for the attack. If the first one was the shell of the drum, then this next one is certainly the stick. Let's see if we hear anything. All right. Hear that little ping? Dunk, dunk. We're gonna keep that too. That's some solid resonance of either the shell or the stick or the drum head. We're gonna accentuate that a little bit. The next thing I'm gonna look for is an unpleasant sound somewhere around 2,000, 3,000. Yeah. So there's kind of an unpleasant ping, whereas the last frequency we found, that was a good solid ding of some part of the drum. But in this case, there's a ring in there, and that might be the hardware of the drum, and you don't necessarily want to hear that. And that's not really adding to the sound, in my opinion. So we're going to cut that out. We're going to find where it's the most offensive. All right, that's pretty bad. So we're gonna cut that out. We've cut out a couple unpleasant tones, and we've added to a few pleasant tones. And above 2,000, 3,000, you're probably not going to find anything beneficial, any frequencies that you would want to accentuate. So what we're going to do is just cut out everything above, let's say 9,000. We're going to do a low pass crossover. Set it to 9,000 hertz. Remember the highest frequency we changed was cutting out about 2,500. So we're leaving some room in there for the drum to breathe a little bit. You could probably go lower in frequency if you wanted a meatier drum. But we're going to keep it up at 9,000. You're not going to hear anything good above 10,000 on a tom. So best to just cut it out. So now we're going to listen to the original floor tom with no EQ. Now with. Now, if you're listening on decent speakers, you can hear a slight improvement in the sound between this flat and slightly meatier sound. You can hear a kind of hum, hum, hum after the attack, and that's what you're going for. That will really help the drum cut through the mix later. So you're going to use the same technique to EQ every tom as we just did with the floor tom. For example, we'll go to the fourth rack tom, and we'll see the same general idea. We get a sub bass, a bass. We cut out the beach ball. We found a good attack frequency around 74 or 740. Found another good attack frequency around 1300. We cut out some weird ring around 2300. And then we're cutting out everything above 9,000 hertz because you're not going to find anything good on a tom above 9,000 hertz. So we apply the same rules to all the toms. Now here we are with the snare drum. Solo the bottom microphone of the snare drum. Find the snare in the recording here. All right, there's room for improvement there. We'll open up the EQ. And the first frequency we want to look for after changing the type to band, we're going to look for the sub bass. So we'll make the bandwidth small, we'll pump up the gain, and we're just going to slide this left and right until we hear some sort of hum. All right, it's a lot harder to hear, but if you focus, you can kind of hear the hum, hum, hum. There's a little bit of a resonance there that's pumped up around 73 hertz. So we're gonna pump that up. So that'll be the sub bass of the snare drum around 73 hertz. So let's move up to try to find the bass. It should be around double that. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah, there's a dum, dum. All right, that's good. We want to keep some of that. So there's the bass frequency of the snare drum. Make the bandwidths slightly smaller so they don't interfere with each other. All right, now after the bass and the sub bass, we're going to cut out the beach ball. There's some good beach ball-y resonance around 450 on my snare drum. So I am going to cut that way out. Don't want any beach ball on your snare drum. All right, now we're going to look for some sort of attack, either the stick or the shell. Around the 700, 800 area. Ooh, there's a nice. There's a nice pong. Pong of the stick, or whatever that might be. We're going to accentuate that a little bit. All right, now we're going to look for another frequency to accentuate the attack. Probably around the 12 to 1500 range. All right. There's a lot of resonance around 1300. We'll take that and keep that. Probably the shell. So after the second attack frequency, we're going to look for some kind of unpleasant hissing around the 2,000 or 3,000 area. All right. There's some dissonance, some dissonant hissing going on there. We're going to cut that out. You might stop here for a tom, but since this is a snare drum, we want to capture the snares. The sizzle of the snares, we should find that around the 4,000 to 5,000 range. Sounds like I've got a pretty long decay. Around 4,200. You hear the ringing of the snare. Ding, ding. It's going to help the snare cut through the mix. So we're going to pump that up a little bit. Now, after we found the sizzle of the snare, there's really no more beneficial tone to find in the snare drum. So just like the tom, we are going to add a low-pass crossover at around 9,000. It's a snare. We'll make it a little bit higher. Make sure the curve doesn't throw anything off. Here's the snare with no EQ. And with EQ. It's subtle, but it's thicker, meatier. The annoying parts are a little less annoying. So now we'll move on to the kick drum. Ooh. Right now sounding very flat and beach ball-y. So for other drums we use lots of small changes. For the kick drum, feel free to make large sweeping improvements to the tone. You may need to, but we'll use the same technique. We're going to start by listening for the sub-bass frequency. All right, you might not be able to hear this, but there's some deep bass reverberation around 46 hertz here. And we're actually gonna pump that up. We're gonna pump that up to 9 decibels. Only on a kick drum would I do this, probably. Okay, so now we found the sub bass. We're gonna look for the bass. Probably double the frequency of the sub bass, around there. Ooh. Yeah, there's some solid resonance around 93 hertz for the bass drum. So we're going to keep that pumped up to about 9 decibels. As you can see, these curves are interfering with each other here, but it's in a lower frequency, so that's kind of fine that it's pumping up all these frequencies in the middle. And it's the bass drum, so there's really no harm in jacking up all the bass frequencies here. The next frequency we're going to look for is the dreaded beach ball. And you can hear it in spades on this bass drum. Even though the microphone is it's a Sennheiser that cuts out very aggressively the 400 hertz, we still hear it a little bit. Yeah, still a little beach bally right above 400, so we're going to cut that way out. That has no business in your kick drum sound. Already a vast improvement. All right, we like that. So now that we've cut out the beach ball, we're going to look for an attack frequency. Some tone of the attack to accentuate. And this will help the bass drum be both cut through the mix and be audible on devices and smaller speakers that may not have subwoofers on it. At least they'll be able to hear this part of the attack. Usually around 7, 8, 900. Oop. Ding, ding. All right, that little ping there, we're going to accentuate that and it's going to make the bass drum audible. We'll leave a thin bandwidth though. Now let's see if we can find another frequency in the attack that we can accentuate. Ooh, there's a little ping going on there. Ping. It helps if I say ping, right? All right, we're going to pump that frequency up. We've added sub bass, bass, cut out the beach ball, added a couple frequencies to the attack. At this point, you're not going to find anything very helpful above really 2,000 hertz on your kick drum. So we're going to add a low-pass crossover to this one as well. Let's say 3,000. We'll cut out everything above 3,000 hertz. Make sure the curve doesn't mess anything up too bad. That looks pretty natural. All right, so here's the bass drum with no EQ. And with. There we go. Slight improvements. They'll add up. All right, we're going to move on to the room microphone. There's a left and right room microphones recording this drum set. Both condenser mics. So we'll see if we can hear any sub bass in here. We'll still use the same technique. We're going to listen for similar things, but the room mic is going to pick up both toms and snare and cymbals, obviously the entire kit. So there are going to be a lot more things to listen to, but it's all right. We still use the same technique, and we still trust our ears. Here's the bass drum through one of the room microphones. I hear a nice little hum right there around 100, so that's nice. We'll keep that. All right, see if we can hear a bass frequency around 200. All right, there's a little hum around 203. We will keep that in the tone, accentuate that. Now the room mic, just like every other microphone, is going to pick up the beach ball sound, and that's very prevalent in the bass drum, so we're going to stick to the bass drum recording. See if there's something around 400 that sounds horrible. Yeah, it seems to ring around 409. We're going to cut that out. All right. Now let's listen for the attack of, how about the snare? That's an important thing to be able to hear. Should hear this around 700, 800, 900. All right. There's a nice little dong around 870. We'll keep that. We'll accentuate that. Let's just listen to everything above 871 and just hear if there's anything good we want to accentuate, or hear if there's anything bad that we would want to cut out. All right. Yeah, there's some kind of hiss in there, some kind of pinging that actually is not beneficial around 2500. So we're going to cut that out a little bit, make the snare drum and everything else sound a little bit better. Now let's see if we can find the sizzle of the hi-hat. It should be around 6, 7, 8,000. And where would we would find that? Maybe here. There you go. You can hear it gets most prevalent around 7100. So we're going to accentuate that a little bit so the hi-hat cuts through the mix. And now let's see if we can listen for the ride cymbal. It's important that the ride ping cuts through the mix also. That will be above 7,000. Oh yeah, a lot of resonance just above 10,000. And that's that ride cymbal, and we're going to accentuate that. Now for room mics, it's actually very important that they pick up the 10,000 to 20,000 hertz and above. So we will not use a low-pass crossover on the room microphones. We're going to leave this here. Leave it as is, and I'm going to copy the left room microphone and paste it to the right. There's probably no need in going through and doing them individually. I'm sure they're probably both very similar. So copy and paste is totally acceptable in that circumstance. So now on to the upper microphone above the floor tom. I call it floor high, picking up both the floor tom and the ride cymbal. Both the floor tom and the ride cymbal. And I've pre-done this for you. But as you can see, same general idea. Sub bass, bass, cut out the beach ball, add some attack, and then you're going to listen for the ride cymbal. That was around 3,000. And there's a little, and then the ringing of the ride around 11,000 is pumped up. So without EQ, the drum's a little flat. It's way louder than the ride. Maybe not way. But now you hear each individual ping, da-ding, da-ding, da-ding. And the floor tom is like, whoa, whoa. There we go. Lots of small changes. We're going to move on to the upper microphone on the snare. So that's covering both the snare drum and the hi-hat. And once again, I have pre-done this for you. No EQ. With EQ. There we go. There's more hum on the snare drum. Hum, hum. And you hear the sizzle of the hi-hat. Once again, without. With. There we go. Much more pleasing. And now for the sub-kick microphone. This guy is to pick up only the bass and sub-bass frequencies. In my case, it is a 12-inch subwoofer connected to a DI box. It's very DIY, but that's okay. That's the way we do it here at Drumunist. I DIM, do it myself. Here's what the kick drum sounds like through the sub-kick microphone, which again is a converted 12-inch subwoofer. And that's okay. But we're going to accentuate that even further, and we're going to be pretty dramatic about it. We're not going to do the band type like before. We're just going to put on a low shelf and pump it up to 12 decibels. Have a nice natural looking curve there. And we're going to listen to what sounds best, usually under 200 hertz. think there's anything of substance above 150, certainly. So this 136 sounds pretty good. And then beyond that, we really don't want to hear anything above really 136, but we're gonna cut it off at 200. And that's gonna guarantee there's no beach ball sound or anything else funky coming through the sub-kick microphone. Ooh, so now it's deep, thumpy, bassy. All right, nice. So here it is, combined with the kick mic. Nice. Here's no EQ. Ew. Flat, weak, beach bally. Now with. There we go. Now that's a bass drum. We're getting there. We're just going to give it a listen. Now we're going to take it out of mono and give it a listen. All right, we're going to take it out of mono and give everything a listen. All right, not bad. There's no EQ on anything. Not the worst. Now with. Nice. Ooh. All right. Lots of subtle changes. I've now dramatically enhanced the overall sound. There we go. All right. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So there's how I EQ my drums. I hope that was informative, helped anyone out there. Once again, you can do this on any DAW. You can do this with any parametric EQ plugin, and you can use these same techniques not only for drums, but on other instruments. So if anyone's got any more questions, they can leave it down in the comments section. Any requests for more tutorials or any more subjects you want me to cover, go ahead and throw that down there as well. And yeah, I guess until next time, this is JT at Drumunist. Thank you for joining the revolution, comrades. Until next time, peace.